Welcome to The Explainer. So, Turkey's auto market. On the surface, it looks like an absolute powerhouse, right? A real giant in Europe. But if you dig just a little bit deeper, a completely different and, frankly, more interesting story emerges. Today, we're going to unpack this tale of two realities to figure out what's really going on.
This phrase, it just nails it, doesn't it? It perfectly captures the paradox we're about to explore. You've got this appearance of a massive, powerful market, but the reality for the average person, well, it feels a whole lot smaller. Let's get into why that is. Okay, so first up, let's talk about the myth, and it's a powerful one. Because when you just look at the big top-line numbers, Turkey's auto industry looks like a completely unstoppable force, a true European powerhouse. And here's the headline number that gets everyone's attention. Turkey is the sixth largest car market in all of Europe. I mean, just in terms of the sheer number of vehicles sold, that puts it right up there with the continent's heavyweights. Pretty impressive. And this isn't just a one-off thing either. The sales figures have been telling a story of incredible energy. We're talking record-breaking numbers, year after year. It really suggests a market that's just firing on all cylinders with huge demand.
But here's where we need to press pause and ask a simple question. Are these big, flashy sales numbers really the whole story? Do they actually tell us what's happening for the average person trying to buy a car? Because as soon as we shift our perspective and look at a different metric, that whole success story, well, it starts to fall apart. This is the other side of the coin, the reality of a market whose enormous potential is being held back.
And wow, this chart right here tells you everything you need to know. Instead of total sales, let's look at sales per 1,000 people. The average in the EU is about 25. Turkey? Just 6.91. That is way below average. It's even behind neighbors like Romania and Bulgaria. The whole picture just flips on its head.
So what's going on here? Well, it's the country's huge population that's creating this illusion of a giant market. In reality, for the average person, owning a brand new car is actually pretty uncommon. The potential for a true mass market is absolutely there, but it's just not being tapped into. So why? What is holding this potential giant back? Well, it really boils down to one fundamental economic problem that affects millions and millions of potential buyers. You see, for most people, the barrier to getting into a new car is just too high. We're talking about a really tough mix of things: high and unpredictable prices, super expensive financing costs, and just general purchasing power that hasn't kept up. Wages just aren't growing as fast as car prices are. And you know, this whole giant versus dwarf paradox gets even clearer and frankly even more fascinating when we look at the hottest part of the market right now, electric vehicles. So at first glance, you might look at this and think, okay, 7.2% EV market share. That's about half of the European average. It kind of seems like a market that's still just getting started with electric cars, right? But then you see this number. That 7.2% market share is actually enough to make Turkey the fourth-ranked country in all of Europe for electric vehicle penetration. Fourth! How crazy is that? So that brings us to another huge paradox. I mean, how can Turkey be an EV leader in Europe when all those affordability problems we just talked about are still holding the wider market back? It doesn't seem to add up. While the answer is that even in this one area where they're a leader, there are still major roadblocks that are slowing down what could be even more explosive growth. Buyers have to deal with high taxes, specifically on EVs. There aren't that many models to choose from, and it's often just plain hard to get your hands on one because of supply issues. So, after looking at this really complex picture of giants and dwarfs, what's the big takeaway here? What's the bottom line? I think this quote from the source material just says it all. We are watching a giant whose potential is suppressed. See, Turkey isn't a small or a failing market. It's an incredibly powerful one that's being held back, just waiting for the right conditions to finally be let loose. And this chart just illustrates the stakes perfectly. The difference between the current reality, about 1 million sales a year, and a future where that number could easily double to 2 million is just immense. It's the difference between what we see now and a true mass market for cars. And the one thing that unlocks it all? Affordability. And so that really leaves us with a big, forward-looking question. This isn't just a story about numbers, it's a story about incredible, untapped potential. So the question we have to ask is, what's it going to take? What changes could finally break down those barriers and allow this sleeping automotive giant to truly wake up?